our land acknowledgement. On November 21st, 2022, we acknowledged that this sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in making the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of natural nation building through peace, friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. So welcome everyone. And I'm really honored to chair this meeting with our new councillors and the new council. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. We do have almost full council. Councillor McGuire probably will be joining us shortly. CO Morris, we have some staff here. Could you identify those?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. We have with us this evening Director Costello, our Manager of Economic Development and Tourism, Julia Crowder, and our Senior Planner, Carl Grenke. And of course, our Deputy Clerk, Nadine Bennett, is with us as well.
Thank you. So we'll begin. Do we have any amendments to the agenda this evening? Seeing none. Any disclosure of monetary interests that arise from the agenda? Seeing none. We have no delegations. We have no adoption of minutes because this is our first COW meeting. And I understand that we have one director's report, CO Morris, from Director Crowder.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So the floor is yours, Julia.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to give a few updates on some upcoming community events. The first one is the Merry and Bright program. So this is the gift box program. It's a great shop local program. And this year we have 22 participating businesses and 35 gift boxes. So that will launch on December 1st and run from December 14th. Information on the town's website is available, as well as Speak Up Smith Falls. So if you're looking for a great holiday gift for friends and family, check out the Merry and Bright program. There's also our Celebration of Lights event that's happening this year on December 3rd. So the park, Victoria Park and the water tower will all be lit up again, and we're having a community event to help with that celebration and to light up all of the lights. So from December 3rd, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. There'll be family fun activities and crafts and a bunch of other things happening there. So please attend. We also have a Heritage House at the museum. So Holiday Heritage House starts December 1st and runs from December 18th. Heritage House will be fully decorated for the Christmas season, and the event, community event, will be happening on Sunday, December 11th. There's also the Holiday Train coming back, the CP Rail Holiday Train that's happening next Monday, November 28th. The train is set to arrive at 6:20 p.m. And that's everything.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, comments from my colleagues? Welcome to Councillor McGuire, who's joined us. Okay, great. We're in the holiday season, so go ahead.
One other one I forgot, which is happening tomorrow, it's coming up really quick, is the Center Street Design and Visioning public consultation. That's happening from 6 to 8 p.m. at Kinsman Pavilion. RSVPs are still available online. If you do want to attend, please be sure to RSVP or send me an email at jcrowder@smithfalls.ca. It should be really exciting, and we're looking for public feedback from the community about the revisioning of Center Street and what that space could look like for the future of Smith Falls. Thanks, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Any comments on that? No? Okay, thank you, Director. So that's great. We have no correspondence items. We have no in-camera issues, so we'll go right to our priority items tonight. And 8.1 is Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act report, and that's with Senior Planner Grenke. Welcome, Carl.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Committee. Firstly, congratulations to all new and returning councillors this evening. My first report to the new council relates to proposed changes to the provincial planning process, some of which are going to affect the municipality's decision-making and the tools that we all have to guide the development of complete communities. As Council is aware, the authority of municipalities to plan our communities comes from the province through the Planning Act and various other pieces of legislation. And local documents such as zoning bylaws, official plans, and site plan control bylaws and development charges bylaws are adopted and administered based on how the province allows us to. As you've likely heard and seen through various reporting and news stories, the province has proposed through Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, some fairly consequential changes. The bill is currently in second reading at Queen's Park, and a comment posting is open until this Wednesday for the town or anyone else to provide written submissions. My report summarizes the key changes that would affect the town of Smith Falls, and there are several major changes that may affect there's also several major changes that may affect governance in the greater Golden Horseshoe area with respect to upper and lower tier municipalities, but I haven't addressed that since that wouldn't directly play out here. The report also attaches commentary from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority and our development charges consultants who prepared the bylaw earlier on this term. They have some feedback as well. Staff are presenting this report for council's information and also to seek council's direction on providing a response on behalf of the municipality. Unfortunately, the timing for this is tight. The bill was introduced the day after the election as municipalities were undergoing transitions in councils. And I think just about every municipality is trying to scramble to get feedback before new councils to provide feedback. So the stated objective of the province in presenting the bill, along with Bill 109 that was approved in the spring and still is not in full force and effect, is to smooth the road for the development of housing units as well as other forms of development. The province has established a goal of building 1.5 million new housing units in Ontario over the next 10 years. And working as a planner in the community and assisting with the Housing Task Force has highlighted the need to create good quality housing that's accessible to all residents regardless of means. And staff are supportive of the goal that inspired the legislation. That being said, we have several concerns that the legislation as drafted and presented may not be effective in achieving that goal or significantly impedes decision-making by councils who are tasked with making the best decisions in the interest of the municipality, knowing the local context. One change to the Planning Act relates to the scope and mandate of the site plan approval process, which is the planning tool that we use to negotiate design details of larger developments and developments in sensitive areas such as next to a wetland to ensure they're safe, compatible, and fit in with their neighborhood. Bill 23 proposes to remove the scope of site plan approval to multi-residential developments under 10 units and also remove building design and landscaping from the items that we can regulate through site plan approval for all other developments. This comes on the heel of a previous change to the Planning Act that removed councils from the site plan approval process altogether. While we appreciate the notion that site plan control is supposed to be a technical process and the desire to simplify that process by removing design elements that may be subjective in nature, they appear, as currently presented, to also limit the municipality to best address stormwater management, lighting, garbage removal, and similar things for smaller developments, as well as neighborhood compatibility and screening for all developments, as well as the ability to take heritage and design into consideration through the site plan approval process in our downtown core. Municipalities have obligations to consider these matters through official plans and the existing provincial policy statement. And in our view, these procedural links need to be assessed first with the opportunity for stakeholders to meaningfully determine whether these changes are in the broader public interest. Another key change is a requirement now for municipalities to allow triplexes as of right on all residential properties, essentially doing away with single detached only zones. This supersedes existing zoning bylaws. So we're most of the way there already. We adopted a new zoning bylaw earlier this year under the previous provincial standard that allows an additional residential unit in a main building plus a coach house in the yard, subject to certain zoning provisions. So this doesn't meaningfully change the development density that we already allow in accordance with existing provincial policy. However, opening the door to triplexes in every residential lot does potentially change the overall character of existing housing stock if there's significant uptake on that. Changes to the Conservation Authorities Act will likely have a greater and more meaningful impact on smaller municipalities. With the Conservation Authority seeing more limited roles in being able to provide comments regarding natural heritage stormwater management, this doesn't affect municipalities' obligations to assess these matters under the PPS on our own official plan. And smaller municipalities, especially without these technical resources on staff, would likely need to retain third-party consultants to do this work and provide comment. And our understanding is that the consultant community these days is already quite busy with their existing work that they have on deck, and requiring and with municipalities having to farm this work out to the existing consultants would certainly create an additional burden on them and likely not result in cost or time savings to developers. In our view, municipalities should continue to have the ability to enter into service agreements with whichever provider that makes sense, be it the Conservation Authority or the private sector, who can provide the best value and expertise in the community. We also note the proposed changes to RVCA regulatory provisions that remove their approval mandates if there's a Planning Act approval required, and we appreciate the interest in streamlining regulatory approval processes. However, we're concerned that this may incur additional liability on the town to assume an approval role for things we might not have in-house expertise on. So parallel legislation also proposes to update the Ontario Wetland Evaluation System that would reduce the scope by which provincially significant wetlands are identified and potentially reduce the regulatory limits. Our caution is that any regulatory changes that have the effect of potentially degrading wetland protection will likely result in negative impacts to the broader community over the longer term, which needs to be considered. Well, certainly feedback from RVCA and others has already been provided to the province on this regard. The province also proposes to amend the Planning Act to limit third-party appeals on most Planning Act approvals, as well as limit the need for a public consultation and public hearing for subdivision applications. In our view, land use planning is most appropriately practiced in an open consultative manner where the public has a meaningful opportunity to participate and therefore has confidence in the outcome. And staff's recommendation instead is, bear with me a moment. Staff's recommendation instead is that the appeals process is better reformed to adjudicate decisions quickly, establish clear and consistent thresholds for what constitutes a valid appeal, which would strike a balance between the appeals process being accessible to members of the public while obviously limiting appeals that are vexatious and frivolous, and hopefully moving the process a little bit faster. Development charges and other fees are also proposed to be amended quite significantly in this case, including the requiring of phasing in of new rates for development charges, which won't affect us since our bylaw was approved just before the retroactive date. There's also a proposal to reduce development charges for rental units based on the size proportional to the size of the rental unit, as well as certain costs from that can be recovered, and also require that municipalities spend or allocate 60% of development charges collected annually for water, wastewater, and roads. So it's unclear at this stage how much of an effect that would broadly have in our community. However, it has been estimated that municipalities stand to collect anywhere between 10% and a third less revenue from development charges. The challenge with that, of course, is that affects the broader principle of growth pays for growth, which is why development charges are why municipalities use development charges to recover the cost of work that and growth-related infrastructure that happens. These are not applied arbitrarily. There's a specific and strict formula that the province determines what we can apply a development charge to. So in the event that we're no longer able to apply development charges to certain projects, or charges are reduced, then the growth-related infrastructure that still has to happen, there needs to be a different funding sources from that. And if in the event that the municipality has to cut back on infrastructure investments or soft services or any other sort of service that we would be providing, ultimately that would have a greater impact on the taxpayer, or potentially fewer services that we're able to provide. So in the absence of some sort of funding recovery mechanism, this particular the broad impact of this change has arisen a lot of concern from municipalities as well as professional organizations, the Municipal Finance Officers Association, and others. Likewise, a removal of development charges for defined affordable housing there certainly is merit on that, and we've investigated that through our new community improvement plan. However, the broader impact of that, it's difficult for us to weigh in on that right now because some of these terms have not been appropriately defined, and we don't know what that's going to mean in the longer term. There's also some proposed changes to the Ontario Heritage Act that raise the threshold to designate a property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And what's a little bit more going to have a greater resourcing impact on the municipality is a requirement for us to either designate or remove the couple of dozen properties that we've identified as listed properties of interest. So there's no real mandatory requirement associated with a listed property of interest. They would just they would not be able to demolish their property without giving us demolish the building without giving us 60 days notice. In this case, the requirement that we either designate or remove that small requirement altogether is going to pose an incredible resourcing constraint on us over the next 2 years, as we would need to research these properties and also potentially open the door up for disputes and appeals, depending on how that goes. And it's difficult from our assessment to see that this is going to have a significant impact on creating housing units. So there are some. We have provided some comments with respect to that. There is a proposal that we publicize the Municipal Heritage Register. Staff support that proposal that opens up our communication. I think that's a good idea. So our review suggests that a lot of these changes here reduce municipal operations and flexibility, and also reduce the financial tools that municipalities have to recover development-related costs. So it's not clear from our review that the proposed changes would lead to reduced costs for future buyers or renters as a whole, nor would it address the supply chain and labor shortages that are a significant drag in completing development projects. I think some of these proposed changes do have merit, or certainly do warrant further investigation, but in the view of staff, there are some challenges as well, and that would require further clarification or consultation. So certainly from the staff would agree with the broad theme that I've been seeing in the consultation, that this needs more time. So at this point, in consultation with Deputy Clerk Bennett, we're looking for council's direction in the form of a resolution to determine the next steps, and if council would direct staff to provide a feedback to the province. So I'm just going to pull up the wording that the Deputy Clerk Bennett and I had agreed on. And the wording for that proposed resolution is: the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls directs staff to prepare a written response to the Province of Ontario respecting Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, based on discussion points as outlined in the Committee of the Whole Report 2022-153. So I'll pause there and look for any questions and discussion by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner. Okay, so I'll open it up for colleagues to question, comment on this important matter. Councillor Robinson.
Did I read the information correctly that if this goes through, it could impact the cost to the taxpayers in form of increased taxes?
Go ahead, Carl.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Our reading of this is that some of the items, especially as it relates to development charges, that's a tool that the municipality uses, where prior to the issuance of a building permit, there's additional fees that are paid along with the building permit, and that goes towards road upgrades and other growth related, any sort of infrastructure upgrades that are directly attributable to growth. So for instance, if we need to widen a road based on development downstream on that road, then the developers and the builders who would be contributing to the cost of that. So if that road needs to be widened, it needs to be widened. If we lose the ability to have that revenue tool and we've identified that the road still needs to be widened, then the cost of that project would be passed from the developers themselves now onto the overall the general taxpayer. So in this case, there would be our reading of the policy is that there would be an increase in impacts to the municipal taxpayer. Since those obligations are still there, they're just transferred over from the development. I hope that response answers your question, Councillor.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl, for a very thorough report. Appreciate that. Certainly, I'm supportive of seeing procedural changes that'll speed up the approval process for developers, but I think there's a balance that needs to be struck over having some control over how that happens in our community and balancing that against increased efficiency. So I'm supportive of most of the suggested responses that you have here, Carl. I do have a couple of questions. One is, has the parkland dedication bylaw that you mentioned been drafted, or when is that slated to come forward?
Go ahead, Carl.
The parkland dedication bylaw, through you, Mr. Chair, the parkland dedication bylaw has not been drafted. That is on the work plan for planning staff in 2023. Certainly, if this legislation proceeds as is, then that would affect how we would be able to. It would certainly affect the viability of drafting that, or what would go into that.
And thank you. With your permission, Mr. Chair, may I ask a second question? Thank you. The other question is, I was just wondering if our Municipal Heritage Committee has been consulted or seen these proposed changes.
Carl.
A summary was provided to the Municipal Heritage Committee through Mr. Chair. A summary was provided at the last Municipal Heritage Committee last week, and MHC was advised that this matter was being presented to council. We don't have a resolution or documented feedback, but there was, and Councillor McGuire can certainly speak to that as he was at that meeting. But there were some broader concerns raised by the Municipal Heritage Committee that will be articulated within the response to the province, if so directed by council.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll go to Chris and then the mayor. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is a confusing piece of legislation because in my mind, although it's trying to solve a worthy problem, it's not using the right tools to address it. And furthermore, a lot of the ideas that are presented in it haven't been thought out to their conclusion because it's going to have a negative effect on the municipalities. I think ultimately it's going to have a negative effect on the developers, and it's really going to affect the quality of life and the kind of communities we're building. That being said, I don't know that the resolution goes far enough for me. I think, like Carl, this is an excellent report. I really appreciate the way you've laid it out for us. One of the best things I've read on it so far. But I think we need to go a lot farther in the resolution. I'd like to see the mayor working with the rural municipalities, the county. I think we need to get as loud as we can on this and really make sure the public knows how detrimental this could be to the future of our communities, because it seems like my impression from the government is that they listen to the loud voices. So we need to create a loud voice with the municipalities in Ontario on this.
Thank you. Okay, your worship.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously a lot to unpack with Bill 23, and Carl, you've done an outstanding job of dissecting it and addressing the concerns. And as our representative previous term with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, I've been involved with emails that have expressed a deep concern among all CAs. And I did add, when the request came prior to our ability to address as a committee of whole and council, request to have my name as a signatory to the CA's letter. I did go ahead and do that to show my personal support as mayor of this community. But it really limits the role and effectiveness of the CAs, and they serve an important purpose in the province. And I think limiting their role, their influence, or effectiveness will have a long-term negative effect. It's really disappointing legislation. And I think as Councillor McGuire said, it's really the potential to have a broad negative effect on our community. I think an effect on the character of neighborhoods certainly comes to mind. The negative impact on quality of life, direct negative impact on the taxpayers with the impact and reduction in DCs. The challenges and delays in getting consultants in place to replace the work the CAs do for us today. The impact of, again, the CAs potential increase, reduction in fees there, or freezing of fees means eventually a higher levy from all municipalities to support the CAs. Of course, the negative effect on the climate and the efforts to fight climate change with the potential for development in wetlands. And we know wetlands are great carbon sinks. They serve an incredibly important role in trying to help us deal with the impacts of climate change. And this will go against that. And in the end, no clear gains in creating affordable and attainable units. And again, we had a housing task force, a housing advisory committee. We've implemented 17 recommendations that we are all hopeful will help lead to more affordable and attainable housing in our community. This does nothing to support that in my mind. And when I hear radio ads from the Ottawa Home Builders Association supporting Bill 123, it certainly tells us, or Bill 23, it tells us that the changes here certainly are supported by the development community, and not that we are. It's not a we versus them situation. We work with the development community. We know that our planning and building department have approved over 400 or about 400 new residential units in Smiths Falls in 2022. And so we don't have any issues in getting homes approved and under construction. So again, I think this will have a large negative effect on our community and really does not serve any purpose in moving ahead our objectives. So I support it, and to Councillor McGuire's comment, I support going further if we can.
Yes, Councillor McKenna.
I think Councillor Quinn has had her hand up. It was just out of the screenshot.
You go ahead, Peter. You go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carl, I support the resolution, and if we could beef it up a little bit, I'm fine with that. Do you have a sense of the 6 buckets that you've identified, the changes to site plan and triplexes, et cetera? Do you have a sense of, are they in any priority, or is there a sense of one that would impact our community greater than others, or are they generally equal in concern?
Go ahead, Carl.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's difficult to say at this point, and some of these changes, especially relating to development charges, those are impacts we're likely going to see over the much longer term, whereas some of the changes we're likely going to see much more immediately. So these are, I would suggest probably the triplexes one would have likely the smallest overall impact compared to what we currently allow. That was presented in the report as it's gotten a fair bit of press. However, we've already gone most of the way as far as that with the new zoning bylaw that you had adopted last year. But I think all of those other changes, subject to some of these details getting ironed out, it's difficult for us to quantify some of the financial impacts at this point because some of the terms haven't been defined, and there's a few questions certainly with respect to site plan approval. I think the site plan approval one, that has some concern to me based on simply defining quality of life and development. As an example, when we have a new commercial development or even a new multi-residential development through site plan approval, we're requiring that lights be faced downward, that we screen dumpsters, just normal outdoor things like that. And my read of the legislation suggests we will be more limited in regulating that. And perhaps there's different tools, different municipal act processes that we can explore to have that same effect if council views that as important. But I think those are the sorts of things that we really need to flesh out, and which is why I think in my mind a pause to sort of assess and define these would be over the next little while would be appropriate. But yes, the short answer is that yes, I think all of these can have a consequential impact on the municipality, but the extent of that, of course, is going to end up being defined better as we move forward, if this legislation moves forward as presented.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I agree with what I'm hearing here and what's being said, and I think it's all coming together way too fast. I think this is way too much pressure to be putting on a municipality. So yes, we do have to respond for sure, but I think part of our response should be that we need to slow things down and be able to have the opportunity to really flush this all out. I mean, I hear concerns from Carl. I hear concerns from the mayor. So if we just kind of go along with it, well, we're going to agree and get ourselves in a big muddle. So let's see if we can't sort of slow things down somewhat so that we can take some time and go through this all. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I think I've heard from everybody. I'll just chime in here. Huge piece of legislation, and Carl, you've done a great job in piecing it out. The effects on us, I'll just go through a couple of things. The site plan part of it, I've been on the planning committee for a number of years, and what you say when you mention the little tweaks that we see when a development comes in, small or large, and it might be snow removal or vegetation around the property, and I think that the planning committee has a good knowledge of Smith Falls, and to take that away, I think would be unfortunate and wrong, and I don't know how that affects affordable housing when we're looking at that type of thing. In terms of the conservation authorities, I see that and I'm certainly support the mayor signing that letter. I'd like to see the other municipalities. I understand there were 30 of them that signed that, so I'd like to see the list of names. It wasn't provided, but I'm sure that's certainly public, and we could get a hold of that. On the development fees, it seems to me, and Carl, you could answer this, did we have some sort of accommodation or acknowledgement of affordable housing in the development fees bylaw that we just passed? They're new. Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to actually pass this on to CAO Morris. I understand this was discussed at the time we developed it. But CAO Morris, if you can jump in on that one.
Yeah. So Mr. Chair, the DCs, there is a mechanism to exempt DCs that council has that authority at any time. So there isn't a specific exemption. Instead, the approach was to develop a CIP program that would refund certain fees and potentially development fees. So the approach was to rely on the CIP for that type of financial relief.
Okay, so that would mean that the municipality, in fact, would be in control of deferring or forgiving DCs on particular developments that would include affordable housing components, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, we don't have that control anymore, right?
Yeah, so essentially the province will have decided that for us if this bill becomes law.
Yeah. On the heritage aspect, I find that puzzling. I don't know why That's got to be part of an affordable housing initiative. So I just find it puzzling. You know, on the loss of revenue and to Councillor Robinson's question, which is a very good one, about is that going to mean we're going to have tax increases? Well, not necessarily, in my view, because we just passed a DC bylaw in June, and so if you have development coming in, that means you're going to have additional property taxes. So the development charges are new. We've had a great deal of development before that, and you know, I think we've been managing well. Not that I'm saying that we shouldn't have done the development fees, but it doesn't necessarily mean a tax increase just because this legislation passes. So I guess the other question I had down, Carl, can you reread that resolution that you're proposing?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just give me a moment. So the resolution that we have down is that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls directs staff to prepare a written response to the Province of Ontario respecting Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, based on the discussion points as outlined in the Committee of the Whole Report 2022-153.
Okay, pretty broad, which it's fine. I mean, we have to weigh in on it, and I know our partners at AMO will be doing the same thing. The other thing I'd point out is the letter from Hempson also includes some recommendations about, okay, if you're going to do this, then you're going to have to give us some more money for infrastructure and everything to offset the money that we're not going to get from DCs and that sort of thing. So I would be interested to sort of include some of their recommendations in anything we send out. And I know the time is tight, and the important thing is to get on the books here and make sure that we're heard as well. And I'm sure the county will be doing the same thing. So those are my comments. CEO Morris with the hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just picking up on Councillor Maguire's suggestion that we look for, you know, broader based support. I would like to share with committee the submission that AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, made on November 16th. This was a submission to the Standing Committee on Heritage, Infrastructure and Cultural Policy. That was the committee that was part of the public consultation for this bill. So it's an 8-page summary, very well researched, and I'll share with you 2 sentences that I think are salient. Quote, the province has offered no evidence that the radical elements of the bill will improve housing affordability. It is more likely that the bill will enhance the profitability of the development industry at the expense of taxpayers and the natural environment. AMO was declined their request to present this to the committee last Thursday, but it is a good read, and I think it represents you know, AMO's approach to representing municipal interests across the province. So there hasn't been a lot of time to consult with through some of our associations. I would like to point out this bill was introduced on October 25th, the day after the election. And of course, comment period closes this Thursday. So it's been very constrained in terms of time, but I just wanted you to know that AMO has commented and in a way that's probably more pointed than their usual approach to commenting on legislation.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna, and then the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in the spirit of, I guess, beefing up a response, I would suggest to council that we perhaps include the line that CEO Morse just spoke of, and that we also direct, given the time sensitive nature, we asked the mayor and CEO to meet one-on-one with our MPP as soon as possible and hand deliver and have that conversation to enhance the value and the importance we're putting on this.
100%. Nair?
Yeah, I think and further, I think we should request the province pause,
Yes,
as suggested by the CAs. Any further decisions, and certainly third reading, and seek full and wholesome public consultation, including public hearings, in keeping with democratic process.
agreed.
So we can include that in our resolution this evening, which I think we should do after this meeting. Does everyone agree with that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thumbs up, shaking heads. Okay. So I think we have a direction for staff for our resolution regarding this matter. And we'll go on, I think, from here. And Carl, you can work on that resolution. And Nadine, before we reconvene at a council meeting in a very short time, probably. We give you all the time you need. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So the other item we have on here is 8.2 council member appointments, Leonard County Corporate Services, and Community Services Community Report, and that was with Deputy Clerk Bennett. Over to you.
Good evening. As council is aware, staff have advertised to seek public membership on boards and committees, as well as a survey was sent out to all of you to confirm your preferences respecting boards and committees. The deadline for the public and council to submit their preferences or an application to join a committee is Thursday, November 24th at 12 noon. In addition to that, we do need to make, or council needs to make a decision tonight. So staff are seeking direction respecting the appointments to the Lanark County Corporate Services and Community Services Committee. And as detailed in the report, their inaugural meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, as well as orientation is later this week on November 25th. So I think the report captured the representation on both of these committees. So I won't speak to all of that and reiterate the report, but tonight we are just seeking direction from council to determine who is interested in attending the county meetings along with the mayor. And then if council comes to a conclusion tonight, we will bring forward a resolution to appoint both members at tonight's council meeting. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Anybody interested in this? And I would add that we spend a lot of money at the county, probably close to $2 million we give these guys. So representation is important. Okay, I'll take hands. I think Peter, you had your hand up first, and then Don, and then Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no doubt that any one of the six of us could represent Smiths Falls very well at the county. I am interested in returning, and for a number of reasons. One is there's a very large turnover at county council right now. It's well over 50%, probably 60% are not returning. So I'd be concerned about the lack of continuity on those committees and some of the work that is underway. I would also point out that in my professional background, I have extensive experience in housing, healthcare, paramedicine, social services. So I do understand those files quite well. And finally, I would say that I have the mayor and I have a solid reputation with our colleagues at the county, both the staff and the elected officials. And as I say, I'm confident that any one of the six of us could do this job. I'm just humbly putting my name forward for consideration. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Don.
Thank you. And I agree with what Peter's saying. Any of us could represent the town of Smiths Falls very well. I was there in my previous time on council. And so for that reason, I would be quite interested in being there. If not, if I'm not chosen, that would be absolutely fine because we're all going to work together. We're all going to get our message is there. And we do spend a lot of money at county, and we do need good representation. We need that strong voice. And yes, I would be quite interested in being part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Well, being a newbie, I thought maybe I'd jump in both feet right off the bat. However, what Peter said in his little talk here was that he does have the experience, and there's been a high turnover. And I do agree that a lack of continuity would be a detriment. So I wouldn't have a problem with either Don or Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Anybody else? Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thank you. And I think to Peter's comment, I think everyone here would do a great job in representing our town and its interests very effectively. Having served the last 4 years at county committees with Peter, I just want to reiterate, I think he's been an incredible contributor. I think he's got wide respect around the horseshoe, both for his political experience, as well as I think everyone there knows what he brings from his professional experiences and the level of knowledge, his passions, understanding, his connection with staff. I think we would all benefit with Peter's willingness to continue on for the next term.
Thank you. Jennifer Miller, Councillor Miller.
Thank you. And I would echo the mayor's comments. I think we've been very, very fortunate, Councillor McKenna, to have you representing us at County Council. I know firsthand your vast experience in the topics that are discussed there, and I value that, and I value the fact that you can bring our voice forward in a positive and professional manner. And I appreciate Councillor Quinn and Councillor Robinson for speaking up for this as well. And my support for Councillor McKenna is for him to continue on to provide that continuity.
Thank you. And Councillor Quinn, you've got your hand up again.
Do you know one of the things that we did in previous councils was we had someone at county council for 2 years, and then we changed and we had someone else. So that could be something that we could also be thinking about, you know, like maybe Stephen would feel quite comfortable then going to county council and finding out what it's all about, or any of us, just an idea. We have done that in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else before I say something? Yeah, I think that, and I understand and participated in that process, Councillor Quinn, a few years ago, and it was actually 1 year because there was 4 people that wanted it, and it was 1 year each, and which I wasn't really supportive of because of the word continuity. And you know, I knew most of the county councillors at the time, and it was sort of like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, I don't know. I wish we'd just have one person here. So one thing about Peter is that in the past 4 years at county council, he's pretty diligent in terms of bringing back reports to us about what's going on, and which is important to hear, and that's part of the job. And so you know, I'm supportive, Peter, of you going back again, and us you know, anybody else. I think you've got the support here. It's difficult to try to look at everybody here and say, well, I don't want you or I want you, but I think this makes sense. And I'll remind everybody that by Thursday we're going to choose our other committees, and we're going to have this conversation again. And there may be 2 people or 3 people that want a position, and we'll have to make a decision, and we'll just go forward. We're all here to serve the town, and whatever role we play, we'll do our best. So it looks like, Peter, you're going to have a meeting to go to tomorrow, and probably the next day, from what I understand. So thank you for doing that. So Clerk Bennett will know. We're going to have this at a council meeting to do is it a bylaw resolution? I think a resolution at the next meeting in a few minutes. And we'll confirm that with the county. So good luck and thank you. And finally, adjournment. I have a motion here that this committee adjourn its proceedings at, I'm going to say 5:50 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Do I have a mover? Councilor McGuire, second by Councilor Robinson, all in favor? So we'll be back, as they say, in a couple of minutes.
So Carol and I are just going to sort out that wording and I'll send it to you momentarily.
Jay, you've got the minutes, you have a seconder?
I think Stephen wants to do that.
Sounds good. And I guess we're waiting for the others. Chris, you have adjournment. Who wants to second your adjournment?
No takers?
Adjourn?
Peter?
Okay,
I think I've been assigned the motion that they're working on right now. Would anyone like to second that one?
Sure.
Thanks.
And you got county council too, right? I'll move that.
so. And that's your seconder, Jay, for the county council?
I'm looking for a volunteer. Steven says he'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it.
That makes it easy for me, Jay and Stephen. And adjournment. Chris and Peter. And Bill 23, Jennifer and Dawn, was it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can you remind me, Mr. Mayor, do I read the motion the first time? Do you call on me to read it? And then you read
Yes.
it the next two times?
Yeah, for emotional, I would, if it's a bylaw, you would read it and then I would read it and then we would go to, I'd ask for discussion item on it and then the third reading. If it's a motion, you would read it, then I would ask for discussion before I would read it.
But you'll call on me to read it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no worries.
Then we could bring trivia back soon.
That's a great idea. I think our next council meeting, Jay.
I'll start it off.
I say you volunteered already, good.
Yep.
Something to do with Stephen's life at the old central school might be a good one.
Time he tripped me on the schoolyard and I bruised my knee.
Still bothers you today.
Not much choice. It was a paved parking lot.
That's right. A good soccer game on today. Did you watch it?
Yeah.
US and Wales.
So
Wednesday, Canada plays.
Yes,
What, do you know what time, Jay?
2
2. Oh, that's not bad.
road to Hull. Number 2 in the world. Belgium's number 2 in the world.
I can advise there's some rapid wordsmithing occurring in the clerk's.
No doubt. Did you get some Indian food today?
I did. This is very good. There's some great restaurants opening lately.
Hmm.
It's to have some variety.
Hmm.